only for these general fund, water and sewer, and port, but anything else from debt service. So we're under the gun to estimate something, and get it advertised. What's the deadline? By Thursday. So we're going to come up with the piece of paper that you know and love, and that the combined funds that shows you where we've started, where we're estimating to start, where we're estimating to end, and put that out for if they public notice so they can come in and comment. But again, this is very dynamic, and with these are within 48 hours we'll have the numbers that we're prepared to advertise. And then when is the public hearing on the budget? September 1st? Okay.
First week in September?
Yeah. And you vote for final approval on the 15th of September. And then Jody loads the budget in operation October 1. All right. So any more questions on revenues?
I have one. Our BP settlement, where is that in here? Is it reflected?
It's in there. It's actually already been booked in 20 in cash.
In cash?
Yeah, we've got that booked in the 2020 year.
Yeah.
That was in I don't know what the account number was in recovery, but it was 1.01. What was it?
Man.
It's in the it's already booked this year. So that was, we weren't expecting that anything. It was like 20,000 total, and it was like 1.6 total, I think, wasn't it? Anyway, but basically it's in this year, and also the $200,000 is in from the utility authority settlement that we did with the utility. We got 200,000. That's booked in there. So that's pretty much, you look at that number. That's why we're a little bit ahead of where we thought we would be with the $5 million loss. And also, some of that won't be in. There's $378,000 more that'll be transferred from the 20 fund to the 01 fund because that's the refinancing thing. So if you just look at that number, it kind of brings me to the next stage of this deal. If you look at the single page, this is the expenses for the operational the general fund as well as water and sewer, and the budget in different categories. This is a single page, and I think it probably says expenses at the top. And this one you have two headings called FY 2020 adjusted and FY 2021 proposed, and there's a change. So what we did, I had mentioned the $2.7 million that we went through to say put the brakes on. That's reflected. So we actually, if you look at the original budget, 60-something million, we put the brakes on and said, no, you cannot spend more than 59. So that's a reflection of what we did to stop the bleeding.
You on this one?
This is the one that says expenses. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Okay. This is
What is this?
yeah.
4 or 3 or 2? Be nice if it was numbered in some kind of order.
All right, this is, you have one that says expenses. You have a single page that says expenses. You got 2 pages that says revenues, and the other one is just the balance sheets.
I'll make this one page 4 in my book.
Well,
Y'all
they're not numbered.
cut these things down,
Yeah.
Okay, we're on expenses.
Expenses, you got it. It shows the departments, right? You see a figure that says 58,061,689, and then you see another figure that says that's in highlighted in 4.539801. You with me? You got it? Everybody's on this
I was
page?
going to ask Jody, these full-time employees at 643, we lost one from last week.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that.
That's all relaxed. Both are relaxed.
No, I am relaxed. I am relaxed. Jody does a good job, and so does Jill. You got a column that says total at the bottom of that? Is that the picture, the paper you're looking at? I may not have that total. Yeah. Okay. This I got the right one. Okay. All right. These are full bodies that are on the payroll, 584. In general fund, 33. In water and sewer, 326. In port. And the total bodies right now, 643. But we've got in these budgeted figures, those vacancies, about 20, right? 21. So in the budget, it's not only these full-time employees, but the vacancies that we deferred and the ones that we absolutely need, because there was about 101 vacancies when we put the brakes on. Is that accurate? Okay. So basically, in this personnel expense part of the deal, the 41-something million, or 40 million, that includes not only the people who are on board now, but the vacancies that we're proposing. And most of them, is in police and fire, And, they've been creative in what they can do, and as far as equipments they can use too this year versus what was in the budget from the prior year. All right, George, that answer your question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right, so if you look at the thing, this is what we think is going to happen in 2021. After we put the brakes on and looked at what personnel we absolutely need. The categories that, we've kind of delineated is, of course, personnel, that represents about 70% of the ball game. And supplies and services and contractual kinds of things, and insurance and capital items, that's a breakdown. So each department, it will be using these numbers and that they have to operate with. The bottom line, when you look at the whole picture, when you add, let me kind of point out, you see the 58061689. Then you got about $4 million, $4.539 million in non-departmental, and that's always we've reflected some of the interactions that we had at the last council meeting, and that was about 90-something thousand. We added back to it? 90,000. All right. So the bottom line figure that, that you're going to be looking at is $62,601,490 against the revenues, which was 59-something another. What? 59,805. So that's the nut right now. But again, offset some things, 370 here, maybe some other opportunities that will come about.
We still have the general fund balance to offset that if we needed to dip into.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, if we start at $4 million, say, we start at $4 million, then what we'll have, and we do to these budgets, and other opportunities come, and we don't make any adjustments, and we perform to that budget, we'll have, that deficit, which is 2.7 million off the 4 million. I expect, maybe we'll be even better position. So you'll wind up, and it's pretty much a worst case scenario in my opinion, because we got cash all over the place. I mean, if you want to just say let's have more cash, let's take some do from. I can take 2.7 million out of capital projects and put it in there as other income sources. But I don't think that's necessary. I mean, cash is cash. We got it. We bird dog that every week and every day. As things come, they make the distributions, and we're aware of where we need to be. And plus, we got good credit. No. So everybody's comfortable with the deficit. The thing, we got about 2.796 million more expenses at this point in time versus what we're anticipating in revenues. Now, would a little, like I said, it wouldn't take me too much, to say, especially in probably 10 more days of the next month, we'll figure out whether that 2.7 is going to work its way down. Could we not be, we may be more than 75% for the first 3 months. That 17 million, we look at 17 million for the whole year in gaming. That could be up $1 million pretty easy. But we're not, from worst case scenario, which we're trying to get to, that difference is 2.7 million.
Question on, go back to the revenue, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Those 2 pages stapled
Mhm.
together. I see property tax,
Right, increased. We're estimating about a 3% uplift in things coming online, with some abatements that went away. And just generally, I think a 3% uplift in assessed valuation for our tax districts.
okay. All right, we talked about the COVID. With any luck, we might get 1.3 million there. On the second page, it's going to be 4737, the waterfront.
Right, that's,
We're looking at a rent reduction.
well,
Is that,
the-
I understand, I'm just curious, what goes into that account?
okay,
What kind of-
there's a base rent plus a sharing of anything over the base GGR.
That's for the gaming,
That's
then, is
right.
what that is,
That's
that
the
waterfront.
That was the Golden Nugget rent.
Okay. So that waterfront item is really a gaming associated.
That's it.
All right, that's,
But it's based on, there's so many dollars over, it's split 3 ways. If it overcomes it, which, this year with COVID, we're not booking, we're not being really aggressive, we're not pushing it to the limit.
okay. On the expenses, yeah.
Okay.
On the expense sheet, down there where we have the employees under personnel, and we've got administration, and that's going up 55,000. What accounts for that increase?
Well, I think we replaced a few people, like, our accounting manager.
Right, okay, but I read that correctly, that's an increase in personnel costs?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Going back to administration,
George, I'm sorry. We have a regularly scheduled council meeting here in a few moments. We need to tidy up a few concerns moving forward with the budget sessions,
Sure.
and then move on to the regular scheduled meeting, and we can return to another budget meeting for the remainder of this discussion. We just received this. I think we need to review it, soak it in.
Sure.
Where are we at on finalizing a deadline for the budget hearing and the publication?
Well, again, within the next 48 hours, I think we'll be ready to propose, give the newspaper what we're thinking. Worst case scenario, the usage, the revenues against it would be 2.7 million unless we come up with some, hey, move the due tos and due fronts.
Thank you.
So we're very close. We're just going to define the look and feel, I think, of what we've found. I think the Harrison County School District, instead of publishing some numbers in about 20 columns, there's a proposed option that shows trust and agency, general fund, capital projects, and then the usage of the fund balance in order to complete the budget. So we'll show the revenues, the expenses, the uses of other funding sources, and the change from fund balance or cash balance in this case. So we're close to that. I mean, I don't see anything changing in the general fund or the water and sewer, right? Okay, and we're just a matter of look and feel. So we'll be ready by Thursday morning. Yeah.
We're
Or
looking at
tomorrow.
Thursday?
Tomorrow, yeah.
So we'll have a proposed budget by Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll have it in our hands by Friday.
Yeah. So,
September 15th.
but it's got to be, the public hearing needs to be, before that meeting.
Fiscal 2021 on so-and-so date. The meeting will be held in the council chambers. The city of Biloxi is now operating with a projected revenue of X. Then for the next fiscal year, the projected budget will be Y. That's essentially what we have to publish. So it's very generic and very high level.
Right.
We have to publish it along with the notice for the public hearing.
I just want to make sure that we have a copy of it in our hands
Yeah.
instead of having it sitting on the table when we show up for the meeting.
We'll get it to you directly for publication, you'll have it, and then probably tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you. Quick wrap-up questions, if there's anything you want the mayor to think about or Mr. Mike, the CAO, to think about prior to this budget hearing. Mr. Tisdale? Mr. Lawrence?
I was
Quickly,
going back to administration budget, real quick question.
not a question, a statement.
Check it.
Make
A statement. Tell him what you're willing, what you're wanting to find out about. We don't have time to go back and forth right now, so just,
Well, that's
if
what I
there's-
want to find out about why we up in that budget when we had a big move, had a big vacancy left. Looked like we'll be down about 200, 300,000, not up.
We are.
up
We
the top.
look at the budgeted, adjusted budget that we were. If you go look at the original budget, that's $200,000 down. We're just putting from the adjusted budget because we filled a position we needed to fill.
I mean, that should be a big negative number in there, not a plus 50.
It is, when you look at the original budget of 60-something million, I can show you exactly what it is. It is there.
so we'll nail that down in the next meeting. Good. Nathan, Felix?
No.
Councilman Glavin? And Mr. Mayor, I think we're still waiting on something from both Frank and Cy regarding insurance. I think updates from them.
I think so.
Just, we'll look forward to those. I have a motion to recess.
Second.
A motion by George Lawrence, seconded by Paul Tisdale. I don't know that we'll schedule another one. We have the actual hearing the first month of, the first meeting of September. If we need to schedule one, we will at that point. Or we'll work on that as next few days. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We're in recess. We'll be back in 5 minutes for the...
Hello, I'm Nick Geyser, the City of Biloxi Emergency Manager and Deputy Chief of Training in the Biloxi Fire Department. Are you ready for hurricane season? Are you prepared for a hurricane, a tropical storm, or even a flood event? I'm here to remind you about the precautions you should take before, during, and after a storm. First, have a plan. Plan an evacuation route, prepare a storm kit, make arrangements for family, including your pets and flood insurance, and develop an emergency communication plan. Let's talk about planning an evacuation route. You need to know what route to take, how to get where you need to go, and plan for alternative routes. Having an emergency evacuation plan can help you and your family get to safety and avoid getting stranded. Just go to the evacuation map link in the storm and flood preparedness section of the city's website, biloxi.ms.us, to determine the safest route. Be prepared to drive several miles inland to locate a safe place. Next, prepare a storm kit. If you have not already done so, make a storm kit today. Here's some essentials the kit should include. Water. At least 1 gallon of water per person per day for 3 to 7 days. Food. Non-perishable packaged or canned food and juices are a great idea. Don't forget the paper products, utensils, and cooking tools. First aid and medication. These should include a first aid kit, prescription medications, and baby and pet supplies. Tools and emergency supplies. This includes items such as flashlights and extra batteries, duct tape, portable battery-operated radios, a can opener, phone chargers, and cash and credit cards. Clothes and bedding. Include some sturdy shoes and warm blankets. And make sure to store important documents like medical records, insurance paperwork, bank account numbers, social security cards in a waterproof container or resealable plastic bag. Next, make arrangements for family and pets. Make sure that each family member knows how to respond. Teach members how and where and when to turn off gas, electric, and water. Teach your children how and when to call 911 and the police or fire departments, and which radio stations to tune in to for emergency information. If you have a pet, make sure the place you are planning to stay allows pets. Many shelters do not. Contact your local humane society for information on local animal shelters. Prepare your home by trimming back dead or weak branches from trees. Protect your windows with storm shutters or plywood boarding. For plywood, use half-inch wood cut to fit the windows and pre-drill holes every 18 inches for screws. And don't forget about flood insurance. This should also be checked into before a storm. You can find out about the National Flood Insurance Program through your local insurance agent or emergency management office. Another thing we ask you to consider is direct deposit for things like Social Security checks or even paychecks. The U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve Banks urge Social Security check recipients who live along the Gulf Coast to use direct deposit to ensure immediate access to their benefits without disruption. Lastly, develop an emergency communications plan for your family. If a storm causes members to be separated from one another, it is important to communicate a plan for getting back together. Designate a contact outside of your area, such as a relative or friend, to serve as the emergency contact. Make sure everyone knows the name, address, and phone number of the contact person. The contact would be your connection to family and friends, even if there is no way to contact each other. Remember, a disaster can strike quickly, so be prepared. For more information, you can go to the city's website and click on the Storm and Flood tab on the homepage. Also, don't forget to sign up for Be Alert. This is the city's messaging system for traffic and weather advisories. To sign up, text BILOXI to 888-777. Finally, we remind you of this. Those days and hours leading up to a storm can be an anxious and stressful time. Should you evacuate? Will the storm make landfall? And if so, when and where? And the list goes on and on. We'll certainly help communicate those answers with the best information. However, right now, we're giving you a host of simple things you can do to be ready. Taking these steps also will take a good bit of the anxiety and stress from the situation. Let's all be ready and prepared next time a storm threatens. If you have any questions for me, you can email me at ngeiser@biloxi.ms.us or reach me by calling the Biloxi Fire Department at 228-435-6200.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Ms. Chambers stated, my name is Christy Kelly Hicks. I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau, and I met Ms. Chambers a few months ago at a meeting that we had, a Biloxi City Council meeting, where I was encouraging our council members to work with the Census Bureau to form these complete count committees throughout the city of Gulfport to raise awareness and educate our residents on the importance of the census and why we do the count of the population. And Mrs. Chambers and her husband, they approached me and she told me that she was with the library and how they collect all of this data for the library systems and history purposes. And her husband was alerting me on everything that he was doing. And she said, Christy, I want to work with you to make sure that the residents of Biloxi understand why is this so important that we get an accurate count of our population. And as you all are probably aware, the Constitution mandates that we count ourselves every 10 years in the decennial. We've been doing a count of the population since 1790. So this is not our first census. We're in 23 censuses that we've conducted already. And so 2020 is going to be our 24th census where we're going to get a count of the population. I call it roll call. We have to see who is here. And by seeing who is here, it's going to help us understand how our U.S. congressional districts are going to be aligned, how many congressmen we're going to have. In 2000, Mississippi had 5 U.S. congressional districts, and we lost our population decrease, so we lost a congressional district. So we dropped from 5 U.S. congressmen to 4 U.S. congressmen. 2010, we remain the same, and we have our 4 congressmen. 2020 is going to be our year to see if we're going to remain with 4 U.S. congressmen, if we're going to increase to an extra congressional seat, or if we're going to decrease to a congressional seat. And that's where we have our fair representation. After we get the count of the population, by December 31st of 2020, the Census Bureau will release the information, the statistics, to the President of the United States. December 31st, 2020. By April 1st of 2021, that's when the results will be released to the states, and they will start redrawing their lines, redistricting based on the count of the population. It starts at our state representatives, and then it trickles down all the way into our communities. And that's when you start seeing your lines redrawn, your voting precincts change. Sometimes school districts are changing based on the count of the population. So we want you all, as residents of Biloxi, Mississippi, or if you're from another area of the coast, we want you all to use your voice and tell the next person why is this so important. Not only is it for congressional representation, but the count of the population, it's what drives over $675 billion annually that flows throughout the United States based on the count. And these funds are funds that support federal government agencies such as FEMA, such as our child nutritional lunch programs, children who go to school on free reduced lunches. It's based on the count of the population, our Head Start programs. Persons who receive HUD benefits, a person who receives SNAP benefits, a person who receives CHIP benefits, Medicare, Medicaid. Census data is used for history purposes. It's used for our highways. It's used for our planning districts, our roads, our bridges. So it's so important that everyone understands. We're not trying to get into your business, what you have going on. That's why we say that your information that you're releasing to the government when you're doing your 2020 census is confidential. We want you all to share that with not only your family, your friends, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors. Share this information that this is confidential. The Census Bureau cannot release any information other than statistics. Under Title 13, we're mandated that we cannot release your information, your name and your address, other than a statistical format for that data purposes. So if you have not completed your taxes the last 3 years, the IRS cannot come and say you completed the census. If you are a person, an immigrant, the ICE cannot come and say, we noticed from the census, your information is protected. If you have an FBI warrant, or you may be a parent who has not paid their child support in a few years, some of these are reasons where a person may feel a little hesitant about completing the census. That's when we ask that you all use your voices to make sure that everyone understands that we do the count of the population for 3 reasons: congressional districts, redistricting purposes, and to drive the over $675 billion annually that flows throughout the United States. And I always say, the money does not follow the need. It follows the population. This is all about populations. And when I talk to the students and when I talk to parents, I help them understand. They say, well, why do we have to do the count of the population? I don't receive some of these federal benefits, so how does this affect me? And I always say, have you ever been on an airplane? Yes. Okay, before you board that airplane, what is the person at the gate doing? They have to know who you are. It's gonna tell them who you are, and it's gonna tell them what seat you sit in. Because before that plane leaves, they have to know everyone who is on that plane before it departs. Schools, before a teacher starts class, what do they do before they start class? Roll call. They have to know who's there. Same thing with the census, the decennial. when we do a count of the population, it's a roll call. We have to know who's here so the government can know how to distribute that funding in our congressional representation. So we want to make sure that you tell that person your information is confidential under Title 13. Census Bureau employees, every employee takes an oath of life when we start with the Census Bureau that states that we cannot release anyone's information under no circumstances. And this is an oath that we take until we pass away. If we some kind of way release that information, there's a possibility that we can receive up to 5 years in jail and $250,000 fine. So we take that seriously, and we want to make sure that everyone understands. Use your voice as residents of this area to help the person to know, hey, this is not used against you. This is for a count of the population, and this is why we're doing this count of the population. Our children are millennials. Some of our millennials, this is going to be their first time responding to a census because 10 years ago, they may have only been 15. So if you have a child, a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, or a neighbor who's young, ask them, tell them, hey, make sure you do your census. And if they ask you why, you tell them this is why it's so important. And the federal government also goes under another title, which is Title 44, which Ms. Shambra understands, and that's when we release your name and your address after 72 years. And that's for history purposes. So a person like Ms. Shambra who loves history, for your archives and history, for your Ancestry.com, you're able to pull that information. But that's not until after 72 years. So we want to make sure that you tell the people that you know, hey, you got to get this count. And why is this count so important that we not only get it, but we get it accurate? The goal of the 2020 census is to count everyone once, only once, and we want to count them in the right place. So I ask that you all use your voices. 2020, April 1st is what we call Census Day. We want everyone to start responding, and in your packet, I have a flyer that tells you how everyone will be able to respond. This is the first time where residents can respond by going online. If you have internet access, whether on your home computer, a tablet, your cell phone, you'll receive an invitation in the mail by mid-March, 12th through 20th, that will tell you the code where you can go online and respond. If you do not have internet access, don't worry, because you can call a toll-free number. Call a toll-free number. That number is in several different languages, and you can respond by calling that number. If residents do not respond in those two ways, then we'll send a few postal reminders, and then we'll eventually send you, between the April 8th and the 16th, we'll send you a questionnaire. Now, if you go ahead and respond, we're not going to send that questionnaire, because in 2010, we sent the questionnaire to everyone's house. 2020 is a little different. You're not going to receive that questionnaire unless you have not self-responded by online or by calling the toll-free number. But once you do receive that questionnaire, if you have not responded, then you'll take the questionnaire, complete it, and send it back. And if you do not complete the questionnaire, that's when we will start the non-response follow-up. And that's when a friendly census worker, we call them enumerators, census takers, they're going to knock on your door. Ms. Shambra, I'm Christy Hicks with the U.S. Census Bureau. We're doing a count of the population, blah, blah, blah. Will you please get this? They're trying to get the data, get the information, how many people live in her household. Well, not only is it important for Ms. Shambra to tell me that she's in a household, but it's so important that she releases everyone's name that's in the household. We don't want a person to leave someone off. Ms. Shambra possibly could have her brother or a friend that's sleeping on the couch because they fall into hard times. And that person doesn't have anywhere to go. They're staying with her. So we don't want Ms. Shambra not to think that she shouldn't count that person on that census form. If she has a person living in her house for a while, that's been in her house for a while, Ms. Shambra is going to count that person on her census form. We want to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. So we want to make sure that everyone understands who should be counted, where should they be counted, and how they can count themselves. So we want to make sure that you all use your voices and tell the persons that you know, your friends, April 1st, 2020, we We can start counting ourselves, and these are the ways that we count ourselves. And also, if you're interested, we're asking that you sit on a complete count committee. We have several complete count committees throughout the city of Biloxi. The mayor, the chief administrative officer, Mike Leonard, has tasked every councilman to form complete count committees within their wards. Because the councilmen are the trusted voices for their wards. They were elected within the areas where they live. So if you want to be a part of a complete count committee, or you may have a business and you say, Christy, my business can help you in this way. How can I partner with you? In your packet, I have 50 ways the census data is used, and I have partnership at a glance. So we ask that you read over the information. If you know that you can help us with the Census Bureau, spread the word, then we ask that you use your voice, not only spread the word, but sit on a complete count committee where these are trusted voices who strategizes and come up with ways and strategies on how they can get an accurate count within an area that is considered hard to count. So I do ask that you all work with us. We have Miss Joni Smith, who is a recruiting assistant with the Census Bureau, who is covering Jackson County and Harrison County, and she is helping get jobs in the area. She's recruiting. We have jobs that are in the Harrison County area. Right now, we are in the operations of address canvassing, but these jobs are $17.50 an hour. They get paid weekly. They also receive travel, which is at the present time is 58 cents a mile. They also receive paid training. These are temporary jobs, and their hours are flexible, so you can work a full-time job. So if you know of anyone that is looking for a little part-time work where they can have flexible hours, we do encourage you all to say, hey, you could be a census taker. They have different operations during the decennial. You will probably be a good fit. So I ask that you all spread the word, use your voice, and if you feel that there's an opportunity that you can help us with using your trusted voice, I do ask that you work with me. In your packet, I have my business card with my email address and my cell phone number. So you can text me, call me, email me, whichever one is best for you. I'd accept all three of them. And are there any questions before I finish?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of questions should we prepare for?
On the questionnaire?
Yeah, on the census.
On the census questionnaire? Okay. So on the census questionnaire, they have several questions. They're going to ask who is the head of the household. And they have an origin to tell us, what nationality you are. And then they're going to ask you how many residents are in your household. And they're going to ask you what is your relationship with each person in your household. And there are several options that you can choose from for each person that is in your household. In 2010, the Census Bureau attached the American Community Survey. They called it the ACS survey. Some people received the short census form, and you had some residents who received a long census form that had all these multiple questions. But on the 2020 census, those questions, we just want to know who you are you the head of the household, and who's living in your household, what are their ages, and how is that relationship to you and the person that's living in your household.
That's it?
Yes, ma'am. And depending on how many people you have living in your household, some people may have one or two, but some may have 10, 11, 12, 13 persons living in their household. But we do want to capture everyone that's living in your household. I have a sample of the questionnaire. I can pull it out at the end and I can show it to you. Okay, yes, ma'am. Any more questions? All right, thank you all so much for your time. I look forward to hearing from you. My phone is always on. I accept calls day and night, weekends, it doesn't matter. My job is to make sure that everyone is educated. Not only am I working with the municipalities, but I'm also doing statistics in schools. So this morning, I was in Covington County School District speaking with the children in the CTE programs. And we want the high school students because right now, they're high school students. But 10 years from next year, they're going to be in their mid-20s. And I can tell you this, that not one student in the class, only one student in the class knew what the census was and why we do a count of the population. So I gave them a wealth of information. I gave them a homework assignment to go and ask their family, did you do the 2010 census? And if they didn't, ask them why. Find out why. Ask your child, especially if you have a child in between the ages of 30 and 40, because in 2010, that would have been their first time self-responding. Ask your child, did you do your 2010 census? And see why they say no. Because I'm in my 30s, and I asked several of my friends, did you do your 2010 census? And many of my friends said no. And I said, why you all didn't do your 2010 census? I just didn't know exactly what it was. I received it in the mail. It looked like some junk mail, so I threw it away. So we want to make sure we want to educate our young children who we know 10 years from 2020 will be adults who may be living on their own and they may have families. So we want to make sure that everyone understands it's an educational component that we want to feel where everyone understands why this is so important. So we don't just have a person like Ms. Chamber who uses census data all the time. We want a person who doesn't use census data to understand why they want that census data and the purpose for that census data. And I thank you again, Ms. Chamber, for the opportunity. If there's anything else that we can help you with, please ask me, and I'll definitely be here for
I
you.
appreciate it. I know you're a busy bee. You have a lot of things to do today, so thank you very much. And you have the contact information, so if you have any questions.
Please give me.
Question.
Yes,
It's
sir.
like, for example, if you have a person that is like a child that's living in a household, but that child happens to go to a college outside of the state, but actually the person's original residence is in the state of Mississippi. How is that person counted?
Great
That
question.
person's living out of state.
Great
Is that
question.
person going to be counted in another state, or be counted in the state if it's of that person's residence?
State living. The state living, that's our person.
So if a college student lives on campus, whether it may be in Mississippi or another state, if they live on campus, they're going to be counted on campus. They are counted where they live because they're using those resources where they live. So we're going to use the administrative records, and we're going to pull that data from the administrative records. So if you have a child that may be from Mobile, but they go to school at University of Mississippi and they live on campus, they're going to be counted at the University of Mississippi in Oxford. Now, a parent may complete them on that form down in Mobile because they say, this is my child, I'm still paying for my child. But we're going to count them where they're located. And that's going to be on the college campus.
So what happens if that person claims them where they're resident, that person's living out of state, going to college in a different state,
We're gonna claim
and
them
then
together.
they claim them in that state, and then that college in another state claims them in that state, so you're going to have the same person, you're going to be counted in two different states.
Right,
So
so
that's not going to be an accurate census, correct?
we'll clean the data. If a parent claims a child and the university claims a child, we're going to pull from the university. We're going to take their records because that child actually lives. Because we want to count you where you live. So even though you may be a resident, when I was in college, I went to college in Tougaloo, right outside of Jackson. But my home was Gulfport. But when you think about it, my hometown was Gulfport, but I'm really living in Jackson. Out of the whole year when I'm in college, I'm in Jackson. I'm just going home to visit because I'm a resident of the Jackson area. So we're going to count the persons on the college campuses. Yes, ma'am.
They asked that, that's why I asked the name and the birthday, and they'll come up duplicates, and they'll delete one of them.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly. Good question. Yes, Mrs. Chamber.
What about if someone is like a caseload for a very small assignment, like for a month or two? If they happen to be there for April 1st, do they count them with caseload or where they're from originally?
Good question as well. So if a person is just out of state or out of town on a work assignment, then you're going to count yourself where you primarily live. So if you're a military person and you're overseas on April 1st, you're going to count yourself at home. So for that military person, just because they're on assignment for a few weeks, they're going to count themselves wherever they live. Good question.
Ms. Christie,
Yes,
I can
ma'am.
access this online, show my class, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I will direct you to the website where you can pull that flyer. Yes, ma'am.
Great,
Yes,
I'll email you, you can just send it to me.
Yes, ma'am. I'll send you the link where you can go directly to that flyer.
My kids love maps, and the fact that the parts that are red are the areas of Mississippi that need assistance so badly, says volumes, so I'll
Yes.
point that out.
Yes.
Thank you.
And for your class, what subject area do you teach?
I have second graders. They are
Second
just
graders?
fanatics.
Okay, I was gonna say, we have on our website, it's called Rome, Response Outreach Area Mapper. And you can go on Rome and you can pull your tracks. I can pull a track from just putting in Biloxi, I can put Harrison County, or I can pull my address. And I can type in my address under Rome, and it's gonna give me the track. It's not gonna show me my house. It's gonna give me the statistics for every residence that's on my census tract. It's gonna give me the median income. It's gonna give me the median age. It's gonna tell me what's the poverty level. It's gonna tell me the demographics. It's gonna say how many African Americans, how many Caucasians, how many Hispanics, how many renters, how many homeowners, how many vacant houses, how many houses that we have where people live in them, how many English speaking, how many non-English speaking. This is what a census tract looks like. And you can pull that up on our website by just putting in the search area, Rome, Response Outreach Area Mapper. And you can pull the different tracts, not only for your census tract, but you can your town, you can pull your city, you can pull the state of Mississippi, and it'll show you all the tracts, and it's gonna give you what are the demographics for every tract. Yes, sir. You're welcome.
What happens if you have a tract that's actually part of the tract, you gotta have a tract, census tract, and part of that tract is in the corporate city, say for Biloxi. The other part is in Harrison County. But you got that tract. And how is that accurately separated between the county and the city when you got just that one particular tract?
That's a good question that I am not for sure of that answer, but we
Because I
have
know
a geography
sometimes-
department,
Yeah.
and I can get your question, and I can ask our geographers in Atlanta that
Yes,
question,
I know.
because that's definitely a geography
I know in
question.
the past, sometimes when that happens, sometimes you don't get an accurate census.
I can ask if you write that question down, I have a notepad, and I can ask our geographer that question, I can get that back to you. But I want to make sure that you get the correct answer for that. Any other questions? All right, thank you all. I'm running my car real quick.
As the nation's doctor, I often get asked, what should I do if I think I might have coronavirus?
People who are sick should stay home. You don't go to an emergency room. You